Jesus speaks that classic line, I think most people know, that no prophet is accepted in his own native place. And he speaks about these examples of Elijah and Elisha doing these miracles for those who are not of Israel. And there is some truth to this, and we can sometimes think, yeah, this is something that was back in the day, or this is something in more of that time of the prophets and how often they are rejected. But there is very much still truth to this saying and to the way that it is lived and understood. And we'll tell you maybe not so deep secret, but I think most priests, if you ask them, they would say that they would rather have an entire congregation full of converts to Catholicism than one that was only cradle Catholics, those who were Catholic from birth. And most often that's because those who come into the church, those who convert and become Catholic, are often more docile. They are often more believing and accepting of what the church teaches. They have come into it and they are willing to listen, and they're willing to engage in a greater manner than oftentimes those who were raised in the faith and those who've heard it all their life. They can at times become hardened to it. And even those converts who do come in, oftentimes the reality is if they are looking around and they are seeing other Catholics from birth, who are not living out their faith very well, it becomes a corrupting influence. And they look around and they say, well, I know the church says, and I've been told that we're supposed to go to Mass every Sunday and every holy day of obligation, but I see so many other Catholics who were raised Catholic who very rarely, if ever, come to Mass. Therefore, maybe it can't be that big of a deal. And they stop coming to Mass too. Or they look around and they say, I know the Catholic Church says that abortion is always a grave evil, but I see many people who say they are Catholics who support abortion and its laws and will even march for it, or all these other things. And they begin to question their faith or stop living it accurately. There are many who will look around and say, I know the Catholic Church says that we need to have care for the immigrant. And yet there are many who call themselves Catholic who absolutely do not seem to care at all for the immigrant or the poor or the stranger. And their faith comes into doubt, into question. There is that reality that those oftentimes who are raised in the faith and who have heard these things have hardened their hearts to the truth. And they are comfortable with where they are. And they are comfortable with still calling themselves Catholic, still claiming to be part of the church, even though they act in many ways obstinately against what the church teaches, what it professes, what it acknowledges to be true. And for the same reason, as we hear in the scriptures, very little seems to be able to be done in the midst of Catholics like that. And that might seem like a rather hard thing to hear, a rather hard thing to be said. And it might cause issues and tensions. And yeah, that's probably accurate, and that's probably true too. There's a reason the people of Nazareth wanted to throw Jesus headlong off the hill, because he was basically saying that they, the Jewish people from birth, the Jewish people by faith, are almost like a second-class, faithful, religious people to those converts, to those who have come to believe from the outside. And that's kind of a hard thing. And it can create issues, and it can create tensions. But in many ways, what Jesus points out is that it probably should. That should bother us. That should concern us. And it should even convict us. That we, most of us who are cradle Catholics, been Catholic all of our life and look around at others who are Catholic and have been Catholic their entire lives, fail to do the simplest things, fail to follow those precepts of the church, the minimum that you are to do if you are to be considered part of the Catholic faith. They fail. And when the priest says you need to go to Mass every Sunday, every holy day of obligation, and the more often you go to Mass, the better your spiritual life will be, so many simply disregard. Say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But it is more often that convert who will hear that in a new light, in a new way, and say, yeah, I believe that. And believing it will come to Mass more often. And in coming to Mass, and in spending that time in Holy Hour, or going to parish missions, or whatever else the priest calls them to do, they experience that transformation of their life. They experience that grace of God in the way that God intends, the way that so many others have hardened their hearts against. And that is part of our reality even now. We are all to have that same spirit of the convert, that same docile spirit to say, yes, I have come to believe. Yes, I will listen, and I will respond to that spiritual prompting of the church, to its teachings, to its instructions, to its precepts, to carry them out as faithfully as possible, and even to go above and beyond in certain ways, because I believe it will be effective. I believe it will be transformative. I believe it will be miraculous in my life and for the world. That is the mentality that we should have. And if our familiarity or breeds hardness of heart, it keeps us separated. And if we look around at those others who are not here today, who are maybe on the parish rolls, but we never see on Sundays, we can acknowledge there's something wrong with that. And part of our response, who have heard the call, who have come to believe, is like Jesus, to point it out, even when others might not want to hear it, so that maybe it will break those hearts of stone, give them hearts of flesh, hearts ready to convert and to believe and to experience for themselves anew, or for the first time, that miraculous power of God.